It's not. It is too. Mine's on.
I've come to sit in prime heckling range.
I see a lot of hecklers out there. I'm pretty excited.
Are you gonna throw stuff at
So, well,
This is mine. Okay. I am not throwing this at anyone. Okay.
welcome everyone to our session entitled Focus on Flow. This is the session organized by the Flow Cytometry Research Group of ABRF. Thank you so much for attending. They left me housekeeping notes, so I'm going to read housekeeping notes. Please silence your phones unless you have a really interesting ringtone that you want to share with the group. Photography is permitted, and I believe our speakers are okay with photographs of the slides. Neil, are you?
Yes.
Okay, everyone is okay with photographs of the slides, but remember recordings will be made available later, so you'll have an opportunity to rewatch anything that you missed. Meeting apps. Questions till the end. Well, we're going to break that rule a little bit. So today's outline, we're first going to have our flash talk, and then we're going to have an overview of the results from the ISAC survey regarding service contracts, and then we're going to discuss what the FCRG has found in year 2 of our study looking at drop delay and the effects of particle size on that. So we will start. I would like to invite Neil Chaudhry to present her flash talk on imaging flow cytometry analysis of small v EVs in platelet-poor plasma from healthy donors and cancer patients. She is a senior staff scientist at the Moffitt Cancer Center in Tampa, Florida, and pretty cool to work with.
Thank you, Rachel. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'll be presenting on an imaging flow cytometry-based analysis of small extracellular vesicles in platelet-poor plasma samples from healthy donors and cancer patients. So in this study, we studied the expression of tetraspenin markers, CD9, CD63, and CD81 on PPP-derived small EVs or exosomes using Cytek Amnis image stream. This study was a part of Innovative Core Grant, which was funded by Moffitt Cancer Center. An overall goal of this study was to develop the new core services for small EVs analysis. And why did we choose ImageStream? We chose ImageStream because of its improved signal-to-noise ratio, because of its high sensitivity, because of the CCD cameras. We have the configuration of high-gain mode. It has been known to measure the particles as low as 20 nanometer. It's based on the automated triggering, and it shows no swarming issues at the concentration of 10 to 10 per ml. So approach for our studies is to ability to detect by this image stream sub-micron polystyrene fluorescent beads. We had a specific gating strategy to identify single exosomes. We use all the background controls. We did the detergent lysis to make sure that we are measuring the small EVs. We did the serial dilution assays to make sure for checking the coincidence. We also did the tetraspenin staining with the commercially derived exosomes. And we also calibrated the fluorescence intensities in the standardized units of MESF or ABC. And we did the size estimation using a zeta view quad. And we also make sure that we use the MI Flowcyte EV guidelines for reporting in a standardized way. So we're using the image stream. We found that using the specific gating strategy on the low side scatter and on gating on the raw max pixel of CD9 and CD63, we were able to detect CD9 positive and CD63 positive exosomes. So using the 15 cancer patients and 14 healthy donors, we were able to find the CD9 exosomes and CD63 exosome in these donors, and we found that there was a trend in the increased CD9 or CD63 exosomes in cancer patients, while they were not significant. So to conclude, we observed that there's a higher CD9 and CD63 exosomes in cancer patients. There was a loss in CD9 and CD63 signals post the detergent lysis. We observed using the serial dilution assays that there was a linear correlation between the SEV's concentration and the dilution factor, while the MFI or MESF values remained constant, confirming the SEV events. The size was 100 to 110 nanometer, so we can conclude that IX image stream is reliable for studying the SEV's phenotypes in the setting of cancer patients. So this is a wonderful group that I would like to acknowledge, our flow cytometry core facility at Moffitt Cancer Center, our manager Jody Kruger, our director Brian Raphael, Bethany Carter, Joanna, Jasmine, they are research specialists in our lab, Paolo Rodriguez, he's a Department of Immunology chair, And this work was supported by Innovative Core Grant from Moffitt Cancer Center. And also I would like to acknowledge Tissue and CDSC Core Facility from Moffitt Cancer Center. And there are other people, John from BD Biosciences, Kevin from Particle Metrics, and Haley from Cytic Biosciences that I would like to acknowledge. Thank you so much. Do I have to stand for the questionnaire?
Well, we have a little extra time. Would anyone like to ask Neil any questions? Does this one work yet?
That was too fast.
I would like to ask about the swarming. You said there was no swarming visible on an image stream?
So we made sure, because image stream has the ability to detect even at the high concentration, but we did the basic, like the dilutions of these samples to make sure that we're measuring the single events. So yeah, but beyond like 10 to 10, yeah, we can see the swarming issues in that instrument, yeah.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so we can move to our next speaker now. Our next speaker is Jane Srivastava from the Gladstone Institutes in San Francisco. She's been involved in the world of flow for 20 years and is accumulating quite a few hats. She is now not only the director of the flow cytometry core, but also the light microscopy and histology cores. We also would like to thank her for her service as the chair of the FCRG for the last year, and now she is moving up to the executive board to continue her focus on education and career development in flow cytometry. Today, she's going to review some of the results of an ISAC survey looking at service contracts in flow cytometry.
I hope this is, oh yes, everyone can hear me, that's great. Thank you, Rachel. I'm handing the mantle to Rachel for the chair of the FCRG, and I'm really pleased to do so. So when we were talking about topics for today, we thought service contracts is a really kind of hot topic in flow right now. And the ISAC Outreach Subcommittee, got that right, I think. Did I get that right? Yes, Outreach Subcommittee sent out a service contract survey. Some of you may have participated. Kathy Brundage, I thought she's not here today, is she, unless my eyesight deceives me. She's here, and she is part of the person putting it together, and she said that we can round up the results. So yes, that's big enough, great. So the data has been provided by Kathy. She's more than happy to answer questions if you see her around about the survey, further questions. There was 136 respondents, really wide-ranging from the amount of people that are in the core to the positions within the core and different places, different institutes that they were working. And interestingly enough, there were 7 vendor respondents, which I found quite good to get their take on certain things. So where in the world, mostly in North America and Europe. There were a few around my area of the world, down at the bottom of the ocean, and there was also a few from Asia, one in South Africa and one in Brazil. I really think it would be really great if we could specifically target those regions so we can get a better understanding of what they go through in terms of service contracts. But it was a good spread, really. So I found this quite interesting, and it's probably almost certainly the case, maybe not in my histology core, but definitely in my microscopy and flow cores, is that I spend more than 50% of my budget paying service maintenance and service contracts. Just roughly, a show of hands, does anyone else think they pay that much or above? Yeah, so quite a lot, huh? Yeah, and I mean 41 to 50% was still 28%, 31 to 40, so it's a lot. It really is a lot. So how do people finance these repairs? Some come from institutional funds or a combination of institutional funds and user fees, some just from user fees, and we fix the instruments in-house as just a really small slither, which I think would be good to change. And what mechanism do you use to pay for these repairs? Pay-as-you-go forms a small percentage, and it's more manufacturers' service contracts. But I think that's more, they hold us to ransom, really, right? They say, unless you use us, we're not going to honour the service contract if something goes terribly wrong on your instrument. So it's more like you have to use them. I would be interested to find out what the other is. And some people use third-party service contracts, although I think because of the quality of service that maybe has gone down in the past few years. Okay, so types of service contract. If you purchase manufacturer service contracts, was the question, why do you do that? Most people say better service and faster service. Good value for the cost is that little green bar at the bottom there. So that's really interesting. And if you purchased a third-party service contract, why do you do that? And most people say cost. But there's 24 respondents that said other. Does anybody shout out what they think the other would be? Does anybody know? I think it would, yes.
There was a move at my institution one time to have another company come in to service all the instruments from all the cores, and they were going to fund this. And it sounded good on paper, but I think it was going to become a boondoggle with a big bill.
Yeah.
And it fell through. But
Okay.
there was some attempt to do something like that, where they were going to get a technician and hire him and have him on salary, basically. Just hire a technician. On salary.
Yeah, that was something similar to what we were thinking about in the UK, because we had, at my big institution, there were tons of cores and instrumentation. We were thinking about hiring it, but the cost came into factor. And also the fact that companies wouldn't let us have data repositories. Sorry, David, do you want to say something there? Yeah, that's, I would really love for the companies to offer us repair expertise and sort of things that we can replace for people that have quite a bit of experience, and also a parts repository I think would be really great. Sorry, go ahead.
I think another point that might be considered is, and this is second-hand knowledge on my end, public institutions might not be allowed to keep that money, or there might be a fear that
Sure.
at the point of the state needs the money, they should then pick it up, and so you're better off buying your service contract and getting coverage.
Yeah.
As opposed to the other side.
Yeah, that's also a really good point. I don't, unfortunately, I didn't have access to the other tab, but I know that Kathy does. So if you are interested, please contact her. So discount on service contracts, always an interesting topic, I think. 79 respondents said they did have a discount, but there were still 36 that didn't, and 21 that don't even know if they do. I know across institutes, across cores, there are definitely really weird ranges in discounts. Like as I said, when I was in the UK, we had one core getting 5% and one core getting 22%, and we both had really similar instrumentation. So I think it's really good that we check in with our core personnel and say, hey, do you know you're entitled to a certain discount if you're a non-profit or something like that? And why do some respondents get no discount? Is that because they're part of industry, or, it would be interesting to know. Length of downtime, it says here that it's mainly 1 to 5 days. I think we've all experienced that, but there's a few over 2 weeks and a few 6 to 14 days. So it'd be interesting to know what type of instruments are waiting for the longer times, and are there certain companies that are taking the longest? I think we all know those companies around. And are we being informed about it? I really struggle with one company because they just don't let me know what's going on. They don't say, my laser's on back order, I have to go and keep telling them, why is this happening? So a little bit more information, bidirectional information would be really great. Quality of service with the engineers. I think most of us can agree that engineers try their best with what they have. I used to work with a woman in the UK, and she was an engineer for BD, and she said what used to happen was we had a patch, and you knew all the instruments, and you knew all the people, and you knew how the instruments behaved, and you could fix them like this. And that model changed, and then now they were just told to go here, go there, go there. So I think that model, I don't know how much of it applies in the States, but I know that my engineers over on the West Coast are stretched extremely thin, and they have trouble retaining good quality engineers. So this is what these questions really reflect. If you have manufacturer service contracts, how would you describe the wait time? And most people say about the same, but quite a few people are saying longer. I think I'm experiencing longer. Has the calibre of the service engineers, sorry, just going down, changed over the last 3 years? Most people say no, but there has been a decrease in service calibre of service engineers, but I don't know. Does anybody here think that that's the case, or do you think it's more that they're stretched too thin? Sorry.
I was going to say, I think they're stretched way too thin.
Yeah.
All the engineers probably,
Yeah.
they're sending them from one end of the country to the other.
Yeah. Exactly.
I would also add to that, new service engineers who are not completely trained on like the range of problems they may encounter.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not individual quality so much as it's just
Exactly. Yep. Sorry, Catherine.
I think it also feeds into one of the questions that's coming up on here with the, have you noticed a turnover, is that when they're stretched so thin, even a good engineer is going to burn out.
Yeah.
And you bring in 3 brand new people who burn out even faster because they don't have that established relationship with the customers to know that they're being given the benefit of the doubt and, and that they're invested in what you're doing as well.
Exactly. There's no incentive for them to stay, and they're being, texted by me at all hours saying, "Oh my God, something's happened." Yeah, true.
I think it's also all the amount of administration they have to handle.
Yeah.
So they're not only service engineer, they have to plan the repair visit, they have to do all the service reports, they have to do it all in their spare time because they were expected to work on site during their normal work hours.
Sure. Yeah, that's a really good point too. So on average, how would you rate your service engineer on the following? I think most people say they're really good. They need almost close to excellent, which I think is true too. Based on your answer above, apologies, will this influence your purchase of future instrumentation? And most people say yes, and I think it should. We all consider when we're buying instruments about the quality of the service and the rumours that we've heard through the industry about how good people are at servicing their instruments. And have you noticed a difference in the quality of service from manufacturer to manufacturer? Most people say yes. That's true. So these are pretty obvious service contract decision points. What factors do you consider when deciding on having a service contract? Most people say cost and response time. Quite a lot of people said person who will do the repair. I think it has, people that are really good at talking to you more than anything really, and repairing the instrument that gives you a good feeling about buying something else. And do you negotiate long-term covers? This is something I've been, to be honest, really poor about, but something I'm trying to fix this year. Long-term service contracts for instruments is in the cause, and most people say yes. Out of interest, how many people do long-term service contracts, like 3 years or more? So not everybody, and sometimes you're not able to, right? Sometimes the funding is just year by year, which we've had an issue with in the past.
We were actually able to negotiate with our provider that we could pay it annually, even though it was a 3-year contract. And
Yeah.
so we're able to actually work it so that our administration is happy with it.
And I think that's what people aren't aware of, is if you get a 3-year service contract, you can quite often pay it annually, but I think it's not too common knowledge, I think, so that really needs to change, because that would help keep prices quite a lot lower.
Basically, it was locking the price in for those 3 years.
Locking the price in, doing a bit of hard negotiation.
We also had to do a lot of legwork up front with ours because we had multiple instruments purchased from the same vendor over the span of like 5 years. And before we could really take advantage of the multi-year discount, we had to get all of those synced up to be on the same renewal cycle.
Oh, true that, yeah.
So that actually took us a full year of monkeying around with, okay, now we're doing 7 months instead of a year on this one so that we can get it lined up with this next one.
Yeah, and some vendors are really responsive to that, and some vendors are not. So I think I've had a few that are like, sorry, you just can't do that. You have to pay for X number of months, and that's it. So in the cytometer vendor responses, I personally think it would have been a little bit better to do like just a few sentences rather than a word cloud. Might have been given a bit more information. But what is the current largest struggle with meeting service contract obligations? You can see staffing is quite a big word there, so must have got a good response. Turnover is cyclical. Instrument load, issues for parts. Being in the industry maybe too long, I definitely think the quality of parts has gone down over the past few years. I think it's definitely an issue. How well do you think remote access for service option is working? And unfortunately, most of them think not as well as it should be working. So it'd be interesting to find out what factors make this not work well. Is it on their end? Is it on institutes' ends and firewalls and things like this? And if this was a bigger part of service combined with maybe training experienced users, would our contract costs go down? That would be great. And final question, what is the biggest concern and or comment you're hearing from customers regarding service? I don't see cost in there, which is really interesting. Maybe contract renewals, maybe it comes under that, but response time is in parts are a big concern as well. Oh, sorry, last question now. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, just a comment about that. They're two separate departments, right? Like, when I reach out to renew my service contract, I'm not talking with my service engineer. I'm talking with some other department, like most of the companies. And so, I guess
True.
you answered that. They do not actually.
They may not, yeah, may not be a part of it, so, but I'm sure they hear us say something about it. Okay, so please don't forget that tomorrow at 9 a.m, I think, David, do you know the room, sorry? No, there's a room for it, maybe if somebody can see it. Yeah, Rachel's going to look it up. There's a service contract discussion about exploring paths of value optimization, so I think that would be really great.
It will be in this room tomorrow morning
This
at 9.
room. This room tomorrow morning at 9. Okay, thank you. I'm going to pass it back to Rachel.
Okay, I think we have a few more minutes if people would like to discuss service contracts more. Otherwise, we can save it for tomorrow and throw it all at David. Yeah, Kathy.
Oh, there's Kathy.
Hi, Kathy. Welcome.
Exactly.
Sorry I missed it. I had to go have my picture taken for a chapter.
I did reference you just to let you know, and I was like, oh, she's not here, but here you
I'm
are.
here now. So 2 things. One is this was done by the ISAC SRL Outreach Subcommittee, so it wasn't just me. There's a group of 10 of us, and we did it in response to Jane's email that went out on the to-do list. We decided it was an important topic. I should say, if you're a member of ISAC, in the April issue of the SRL newsletter, which just came out, we actually we sent these same questions, or we sent some more in-depth questions to people that work in the Corps, and so we got like 4 or 5 responses there, and their responses are in the newsletter. I also, thanks to sending out the email I sent to vendors on the to-do list, got a response from, and I can't remember what, he's the director or something, at BD. And so I gave him these same questions plus a couple of others, and he responded, and we put that into the newsletter as well. And the other thing is our subcommittee really thinks we should continue this discussion. So next week when we're at ISAC, whenever we're in Edinburgh, not next week, I guess the week after, our group is going to meet and we're going to start discussing maybe doing some type of something on CytoU or a webinar to kind of more like a panel discussion, not to blame the vendors, but to get them in the discussion to see what we can do to work together. Because we do think this is a really important topic that affects everybody. And it's not just the flow people, I know there are other people as well. So if anyone has any ideas or suggestions, please feel free to email me, kbrundage@hsc.wvu.edu, kind of thing, and I'll be happy to have you join us. So anyways, that's just my
Thank you.
Do you have time for one more question?
Absolutely.
I just wanted to know, so in your survey, I think the results I'm from the top of my head, 53% of respondents had coverage of the entire
situation where we have a vendor who is refusing to renew a service contract on one of the instruments. We have 3 of the same instruments. We're going to do 2, but we won't do the 3rd one because it's a year older than the other 2. Is anybody experiencing that where they're running into a vendor that, or any vendor, we're not going to name names, but that is,
Depending on the lifestyle. Yes. How old is the instrument?
they're not repairing them after 10 years. But anything of that style, model, however you want to call it, that was purchased since then, they'll still maintain.
Yes, they have to. So they have to, I think, give service 10 years after they sold.
So I think the thing is, like, some instruments are sold for years at a time. So if you had a 10-year-old instrument versus an 8-year-old instrument and everything's the same, and they'll contract the 8-year-old instruments but not the 10-year-old instrument.
Yes.
So it's not an end of life of a product cycle. It's that one's old, we're not going to cover it anymore.
So you buy
Like a pre-existing condition.
It's like having a 2003 Ford Taurus and a 2014 Ford Taurus is what it is.
Only the Taurus probably changed more.
So what I was told for my particular equipment is that I have there were multiple models put out, and I have one of the original models, and they made slight changes to the interior parts, and they're able to get parts for the newer models, but they're having trouble getting parts to fix the model that I have, and that's why they won't continue to cover it. Right? They will come out and service it as much as they can, but they won't cover it on the service contract anymore. So whether that's really true or not, obviously I have no idea, but that's what I was told.
Be nice to have a little more transparency in the service world and parts world too, huh? So I think, given the time, we're going to move on to our next topic, and this is what everybody's waiting for. We're going to hear from Christiane Hassel about what has happened in year 2 of the FCRG drop delay project. Christiane is the core manager at IU Bloomington, and she is also active in both ABRF and GLIFCA, and ISAC. We see each other at a lot of meetings, and it's wonderful. So she's going to talk to us about the drop delay project.
Should that just go on to?
It'll go on the next one.
Great. Thank you, Rachel. So, without much further ado, let's see. Yes, so this is the update for our drop delay study for the FCRG, Flow Cytometry Research Group. We're excited to present this. And so for those of you who were at year 1, I'll do a little bit of background first on drop delay and then recap our year 1 results. For those of you who would like a little refresher on what drop delay is the time needed by an event to travel from the interrogation point, so the laser, to the first drop that gets charged, gets broken off, charged, and then dropped into the tube for us. So that measurement of that delay is super important, because if it's incorrect, you're not going to recover as many particles as you think, or if it's really wrong, you're going to recover the wrong ones. So if that drop delay is measured incorrectly, we aren't sorting what we think we're sorting. Okay, so the evolution of drop delay. So who remembers doing puddle tests on sorters? Yeah, we see have some. And now I'll admit I came in when we had AccuDrop, so I had a little bit of help, but I have done puddle testing in my time. But that was the first sorters required a manual drop delay process. So that was time consuming. You had to set it up. If it was wrong, you reset droplets, sort more puddles, count beads, whatever it happens to be, depending on the instrument. I'm speaking from my experience of sorting puddles. But then we had automated drop delay calibration using standardized beads. So those beads helped us out. Now we have instrumentation that does everything for us. You turn it on, you turn on the stream, It sets up your stream, it does your quality control, you put in some beads, it automatically also sets up your drop delay for you. And this is great because it streamlines everything until it's not great, because sometimes what you're working with are bigger particles or oddly shaped particles, and then you can't change anything, and now you're the sort operator sitting at the instrument, and you're like, okay, I can't make any adjustment here. So why do we want to change that drop delay, and why were we interested in this study and doing this study? Well, because you can sort a larger variety of sample types, and you have the ability to increase the sample types when you have restrictions on nozzle or orifice diameters. So some instruments that are available only have a 100 micron opening. Can we push the limit and sort some larger sizes, smaller sizes? So that's one of the reasons that we were interested in doing this study. What can we push? And what factors will influence the drop delay? Well, temperature, sheath pressure, drop drive settings, fluidics designs, particle sizes, those are all included in what can influence drop delay. But the particle size is the thing that's most variable, right? You can sort bacteria, you can sort blood cells, you can sort hepatocytes. We have a lot of different cells that we can try to stick through a nozzle or a chip or whatever it happens to be. And those particles that have the larger size, they can alter drop delay until at some point you get a deterioration of the sort streams as well. So how big is too big? And I will mention that there have been previous drop delay studies, previous testing, so this isn't brand new. So you can see from Rockefeller and Memorial Sloan Kettering and the Big Apple Flow Network group that they have done testing on instrumentation and RMAX as well. So that's some information that's already out there. For our study, what we wanted to do is expand on the instrumentation and then really look at those fully automated sorters as well. So yeah. All right, so the year one, so our first year, we wanted to measure the automated drop delay accuracy across commercially available sorters. And one thing that I didn't mention, that drop delay, that first slide on the drop delay, is this was with electrostatic sorters. So we're specifically on droplet-based electrostatic sorters. So what we used was 10 and 24 micron beads. Beads are commercially available. They decrease the variability that you would have if you were trying to use cells. We can send the beads out without any biosafety concerns, and so that helped us standardize across the board. We had 11 institutions initially take part and 10 cell sorter models with 15 different configurations, and we used 100 micron. As I said before, there are sorters out there that only have a 100 micron nozzle or orifice or chip that you can use. Now, I will say also that we tested it with 100. It doesn't mean that you can't use a larger nozzle if you have one, right? So we're trying to push the limits across one standard nozzle diameter. Okay. All right, so what we used, so those 10 cell sorter models, we had 10 and 24 micron beads. Again, those are commercially available from Spherotech. Anybody can buy them. If you wanna do this at your own institution, if you weren't part of the study. I see many people who were part of our year 2, which is very exciting. What we did and what we had everybody do was set up the sorter first, do the quality based on the core or the lab's method, and then use the automated drop delay setup. So don't change anything, use the automated delay settings, and then sort puddles. We went back to the earlier method. We sorted 4 puddles of 25 beads each, and that was 4 times 25 for the 10 micron, load your 10 micron sample, and then do the same thing with your 24 micron sample. 4 puddles, so times 25 gets you 100, and then repeat that on 2 more days. So we get that information. It's not just one test, we wanted to do it at least 3 times. But also wanted something that would be simple, and you're not defeating any safety interlocks when you do it. Just sort it onto a slide, or if you don't have a slide, stick a slide onto a plate. If you don't have a plate loader, stick it on top of a tube, one of the tube holders. You have some options there. All right, and this was our setup over here on the gating strategy, and then the sorting. All right, so year one, we didn't tell you what instrument it was. We told you that there were different configurations, and you can see from the 10 micron that all the instruments and configurations performed really well across the board. And these were 24 micron beads. There's a little bit of a difference between manufacturer of one set of beads to the other. 24 micron beads are a lot of differences across the board, right? So we pushed those 24 micron beads in through the 100 micron nozzles, and these were our results from year one. So what happened in year two? So we wanted to do a year two to increase the robustness of the study. We wanted to include more sorters, and this year we wanted to name the sorters. So we named the sorters. We had similar materials and methods. Now we did initially have non-fluorescent beads and fluorescent beads. The fluorescent beads were helpful if somebody wanted to look at them under the fluorescent microscope, but you could also use a light microscope to count. And then, again, the beads were tiny bit larger at closer to 25 microns, so that's why we were seeing 25 instead. But again, same Sphero-Tech beads. But again, if anybody wants to repeat it, the catalog numbers are there. All right. So before the big reveal, what we wanted was at least 3 sorters for each model. And in some cases, we didn't get that. So to account for that, I'll have a slide later that says, hey, we want these sorters. We want you, scan the QR code and sign up, please. Because if you only have 1 or 2 sorters, we can show you the data, but we want more to make sure that that data is consistent. So I want to be upfront about that, because we want more instrumentation so we can increase the robustness, get better results. All right. So with that being said, this is year 2, and these are all the instruments and the different configurations. I don't want to spend too much time on this one because I do have a couple more slides where we consolidated per instrument. But as you can see, 10 micron again across the board. Now we have the initial 11 institutions. We have 17 more institutions that we've added, and 22 configurations. And I'll go through and you'll see a list of instrumentation as well. So the next one is our 25 micron beads. So not surprisingly to us, due to year 1, these were the 25 micron bead results. So again, this is a 100 micron nozzle. Some of these instruments have the option for you to use a larger nozzle size. And if you have that ability, go ahead and do that. But some of these instruments don't let you change the nozzle or chip diameter, and so some of them are set, and you can't change the drop delay. So again, I'm gonna move on to the more consolidated data, and we'll spend a little bit more time on that part. So data consolidated by instrument. So across the instrumentation, so again, 10 micron, you'll see now over on the right-hand side what instruments we use and how many of each instrument. The dots on the graph are the median for one particular instrument and configuration. So that data was consolidated by Ken and Claire Fraser did all the statistical analysis, so thank you, Claire, and I will mention you again at the end, too. So yes, so for the 10, as we kind of assumed that this was going to be similar across the board, all the instruments performed pretty well, and we had all the manufacturers represented here. But as you can see, we have some instrumentation where we had 1, 2 And somewhere we had 4, but now we're thinking, well, that magic number maybe is not 3, maybe it's 6 or 9 or a few more than that, right? Yeah, absolutely. That is a great question. So the question was, do you think the S8 is better at sorting because it's slower than the S6? I have neither one of those instruments. So, and let's see, for those with the S8, is that? There's only one S8 on here too, so that's one thing we have to think about. But yeah, it's one data point. So I'm like, do we have, how many S8s do we have out there? Will you be part of the study? So okay, I see at least 2 hands up there. Yep. So yeah. So the answer is we don't know yet because again, yes, there aren't that many data points, and so we need more information. Now with the 10 as well. They did pretty well. That blue area is what you're going to see when I switch to the 25, what things go below that area. So this had pretty good recovery across the board. It's not going to, oh, there we are. So this was the 25 micron data. So you can see that's actually pretty similar to what we had in the previous study. You can see some instruments were across the board, so there could be some site-specific issues here. So it might not just be the nozzle diameter, it could be that at a specific site, maybe one instrument isn't working as well as another one. And there were definitely instruments that look like they perform a little bit better, but again, if you look at the numbers for each, there might be an instrument that did really well but had 2 data points. There might be an instrument that didn't do as well, also had maybe 2 or 3 data points. So we want to know more. So we want that information. But again, across the board, you can see a lot of the medians were below that line, that area where we had the 10 micron samples. And so again, we really want to increase that. And again, as Rachel mentioned before, if you have questions on this, feel free to ask and we can talk, and it's been an interesting journey through this, yeah.
What's the median, 70 or?
That is the median where, let me see if I go back. Yeah. I don't know what the number of where that line is. Will it go back? There it is. Yeah, so that was where, I don't know what that bottom dot number is on the 10 micron. That's kind of where I look at this point. But I would say, yes, that's probably around 70 where that median is. So yeah, so looking here, and again, we want more data points. Please give us please give us your instrumentation. I will send you beads. We will send you beads for that. But yeah, so, and then this is just to, again, some of the fully automated instrumentation where you only have the 100, what can we do about that? And that's where a conversation with companies comes out. Do you have the option for some instruments for having a super user, having the ability to be a super user and make some changes if we need to? So what we concluded for year 2 is at those 10 micron beads, that recovery was pretty good. And the 25 micron wasn't so great. There was more variation in the 25 micron bead data than there was in year 1, but we got a lot more sorters, especially for some of the configurations. And so the number of instruments increased. So initially, some sorters that did well across the board, the medians went down a little bit. So the drop delay settings that you set on your instrument, they're accurate for the 10 micron. So if you're only sorting 10 micron or thereabouts, you're good to go. So you might still want to do a little bit of testing just to see what your range is. And the 25 micron, it wasn't accurate across most of the sorters. And some of the variability, some of the things that we looked at, so may be due to a 1-drop or 2-drop envelope. So those bigger beads, they might not be in the middle of the drop, and they might be in the neck of the drop. So they're not going to be sorted or charged as well. So there may be a few changes that need to be made. Maybe the drops need to be bigger. So again, if you have a 130, 150, whatever it is, and you've got an instrument that has that capability, change to that. And it was interesting because some of the study participants, we asked for a 1-drop envelope, but some gave us a 2-drop envelope. So that could be where some performed better than others. We haven't looked into that ourselves yet because we want some additional data for that as well. All right. So this is where the future directions come in. So test additional sorters where N is less than 3 or thereabouts, or even if there are 4 or 5. We want more sorters in the study. And on the sorters where changing drop delay is possible, again, Rockefeller, the Big Apple Flow, Memorial Sloan Kettering, they did these tests where if you have the ability to change the delay, the drop delay, especially on the ARIA instruments, as you saw on the poster previously, get some beads, change it, or if you have cells and you have a fluorescent microscope handy, use a dye, add that, and sort those out. Yep. And then also to test the different sort precisions. Does a 1-drop versus 2-drop envelope, what's the difference between that, and can that catch the cells, or in this case, the beads better? Can we make that change? If we make that change, do we have the ability to increase that recovery with the larger particles? So yeah. Yes?
So I don't know this, but maybe somebody in the room does. Do you know what the diameter of an AccuDrop particle is?
It is about 6 micron. If you use the Spherotech ones, it's 7.8 or thereabouts.
Okay. My question is, would there be any advantage if you knew your cell of interest was, I don't know, 18, 20 microns or whatever? Would there be any advantage to using a larger particle, like a 20 micron bead, for a 18 to 20 micron, and then setting your instrument up with that? Do you think that would work?
Rachel, did you do some tests? I can't remember if you did some testing on that,
So
but somebody did some testing
we
on
think
that.
that would work,
Yeah.
but we couldn't get access to something that would be compatible with the AccuDrop system. I had something from Slingshot. I had like a big hydrogel particle, and I tried to stick like a whack of Alexa 700 on it or something, but I couldn't quite get it to work in the AccuDrop system, which puts us right back to counting beads on slides to do it.
Yeah, the Spherotechs, I think, and Rui, do you know the answer? The Spherotechs beads, would they work for the AccuDrop system? Are they bright enough for the?
So the beads that Spherotech made that are supposed to be similar to the AccuDrop, or really the same. But the bigger ones, they did work, but the thing is you start getting less events as the particles are bigger. So for instance, we tried with the 30, we couldn't get a reasonable AccuDrop measurement with the 30 micron beads. The 20, the 25, I think we were, but it was still hard. So it starts getting harder with a 100 micron nozzle to be able to measure AccuDrop with those big beads. And I just want to comment on so in principle, you can measure the AccuDrop with a bigger cell particle size to match your sample. But the thing is, even the cell line has a very heterogeneous distribution of sizes. So you're always going to miss out. It's better than doing the smaller particle, smaller AccuDrop particle, but you still have that problem. And then if you go to heterogeneous samples, then you're screwed, right?
Yeah. I can tell you from my own experience what I've done since almost the beginning. So our core facility, we have an ARIA to upgrade with a square flow cell, and we have an SH800. And with the ARIA, since almost the beginning, talking to technical applications, we were working with some larger cells, and we have tissue culture cells that are 15 to 20 micron, and at some point I was working with hepatocytes. I bought from Spherotech the different sized beads, not for the AccuDrop, but to get closer, like Rui was saying, it's not going to be perfect because the cells are going to be more variable, but it's going to get you closer on the recovery. So what I have noticed personally, like I do the AccuDrop, and then I will do a puddle test with, let's say, 25 micron beads. And it's not a big adjustment. It's not like huge. It's not going to be off necessarily by one drop, but a partial measurement. But you can, with something that's available, you can fine tune it. But again, the restriction is the fully automated systems won't let you do that because they're locked down. So the question is, will the companies give us the ability, or can they give us, for example, a bead set that it has, when they set drop delay and the automated systems, can they give us, okay, this is 5 micron, 10 micron, 20 micron? And it really, again, is depending upon your core and how much you use or have to sort larger cells or particles. But I know for me, I've been doing that since not long after I learned how to use the ARIA, and somebody was like, I'm not getting as much recovery. And there have been discussions on the Purdue list as well about this, where there's changes that you can make with AccuDrop, but now we're getting into these fully automated systems, which are great. You push a button, walk away, come back. I love that. But I also, as a core manager and a sorter operator, I want some more control.
And I just wanted to say, that we have approached vendors about this issue. They seem to be quite reluctant. I think they're thinking that we're trying to blame them, but that really isn't the case. We actually really want to work with them and see what we can do about this issue. We are trying to work with them. We're not trying to push them away, just to reassure.
We want to make this a collaborative effort. Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Jane.
You're welcome. And I would personally like to thank Christiane. Like, she's done so much work for this and sent out beads all over the world and contacted people all over the world and done so much testing and everything. There's a lot that goes into the background of this apart from what you see here. So I personally want to thank her. And I also want to thank Claire for taking over the data analysis at the drop of a hat when we had a member that unfortunately had to leave. So thank you, Claire, for that too.
It's like, you can ask questions. I can do the acknowledgements really quickly, and you can ask more questions. Yeah. So I'll do some acknowledgements, and we can keep talking because we still have some time. But these were all the institutions and people who either I sent out beads, or if they were outside of the U.S., they bought their own beads. Thank you. So thank you to everybody who participated, and if I missed anybody, let me know, and I'll stick you on this slide as well. Or if you're not on here and you're here, then you should raise your hand if you're not on that slide. But yes, we had, did I count 17? Additional sites. So thank you for all of you who took your time and sorted and gave us a lot of data for Claire to go through. So again, I'm going to give another shout out to Claire. And then our own flow cytometry research group. So this includes current and former study participants, Kevin Farrow, who had done the number crunching for year 1. Again, special shout out to Claire, and also to Ken. And then I am a perfect example of, if you have something that you're interested in doing and you make the mistake of in a FCRG group meeting saying, well, this would be interesting, and then you become the study co-author. But because drop delay is near and dear to my heart, so I've been really enjoying doing this and helping get the word out, because the word has been out, but we want it to get out even further. And the backing of the flow cytometry research group as well. And my study co-author, Pam, who is at Cold Spring Harbor, who wasn't able to make it to ABRF this time, but she's done a lot as well. So yes. And tell me that you have instruments that you want to add to the study. And Catherine.
Hi. So I'm so glad to hear you say drop delay is near and dear to your heart, because
it is to mine too. And I think we should have like a mini muffin basket at some point and just have all the drop delay aficionados hang out there, which might end up leading to a bottle of something. Anyway, I wanted to mention we have tried drop delay with different size beads from Spherotech that do work with that setup modality in DIVA for the ARIAs. I forget what size threshold, after we pass that, the beads that you get are just so dilute straight out of the vial that it's almost impossible to work with them for like on a routine basis. We can do it for testing, but it isn't something that we could drop delay with routinely. And also on the normal quote unquote drop delay beads, we're looking for AccuDrop percentages that are in the high 90s. As we get bigger and bigger on the beads, that maximum value that we achieve goes down as well. So even trying to account for the size of the cells by using larger beads for drop delay, we still assume that we're not doing as good of a job as we are, or that the instrument is not doing as good of a job as it does with the smaller particles. I also wanted to ask you a question, Rui, because kind of what put drop delay on my radar in the first place was some of your flow text data. I was very intrigued by the plots that you showed years ago that if you have a rectangular flow cell on your ARIA, you see more discrepancy with the sorting or recovery based on the size of the particle, and then if you get to the square flow cell, life is good again. And I almost cried when I went back and did Rmax on my ARIAs after they had their flow cells replaced to have the square flow cells. And I started buying square nozzles to go with my square flow cells. And I didn't get the equivalent of those Rmax peaks to shift the way that they did on yours. So I want to know what else you did to your ARIAs that made the size difference not so penalized, I guess.
Yep, I can go back to that.
So the thing is, we were seeing huge discrepancies.
Where am I supposed to?
That's what triggered us to start looking into this. So the discrepancies
There it
are
is.
very easy
Oh.
to find if you have a rectangular flow cell.
And before I forget, because I have a Post-it note, and I already forgot to say it, not to interrupt too much, but I also wanted to thank the ABRF for the funding for this study. I even wrote a Post-it note, and it's right there too. So, okay, but I'm going to go back to that poster eventually.
Yeah, so, and we were seeing, because we had, in our facility, we had 7 sorters like that, 7 ARIAs with rectangular flow cells, and only one with a square. And Rockefeller had 3 sorters, and they had also 2 rectangulars and 1 square. And by coincidence or not, the older rectangulars had that shift, so maybe I could point it to you. You guys can see it. Here, there are huge shifts. These are recovery curves, and this is the shift. So this is the drop charge delay that we measured with the AccuDrop, and this is with 7 micron beads, matches perfectly. And then with, I forget, 15, 25, something like that, or 15 and 20, and it shifts dramatically. This is like 1 drop difference, right? So you're sorting the wrong drop together. And then when we ran on the square cuvette based sorter, then we had all these curves overlapping. And so this is what I would expect to see when you change to square cuvette. You didn't see that? And overlapping.
Yep.
And, so we have ARIA, we have ARIA RR and ARIA S with 2 different functions, one four-way and one purity.
There it is. Yeah. And so yeah, like Jane was pointing out, there's a lot of variability even on the square.
So, I mean, first of all, I really love that you're doing all this effort. It's a lot of effort. And even if it's not just you running all these sorters, it's still a lot of effort to coordinate all this. So I really congratulate you for that. The only thing, and I mentioned this also the last year, one of the things I'm not so sure about the precision of this method to count just 100 beads, and that with the 25 micron beads, you're going to see them spread more. So they're harder to count. So already there, you have exactly the same precision in both count, right, that you're trying to compare. And then the other thing is, I mean, as you were mentioning, this has to be standardized. The mode has to be sorting drop, and the efficiency. What was the efficiency that everybody was sorting at? Because when we, go around teaching people how to run the ARCs, we very clearly, you need to have efficiency 100%. Say, oh yeah, okay, let's. It's oscillating between 90 and 98%. So, I mean, those are the things that need to be standardized and really to make sure the data is comparable.
Yeah.
So once that's there, then we can start looking at like the discrepancies. I mean, the square seems to be a bit better right there, but I don't know how better it is because again, we don't know what mode we're using exactly, if they're even comparable, right? Like the S8, I'm very surprised with the S8. I don't think it has to do with the fact that it goes slower because we can run things slower in the area. So I don't think that's an issue, but maybe that person was doing a two-sort envelope and recovered pretty much everything. And now it looks really good. There's one instrument, if I'm not mistaken, right? One S8 there.
So we did have some data that wasn't consolidated. So from here, you can see people were doing four-way purity, single cell. So we did have some different mode data that we did end up seeing, but again, there were some limitations on the number of people who did the one mode versus another. So we requested everybody to do four-way purity for the ARIA, but not everybody did it.
Right, okay.
And so, but that was the goal for, so, but if you
Right.
do see the four-way for the ARIA with the square versus the rectangle, there's variability.
Right,
Yeah.
and you see there, right, like the four-way and purity, right, on the square. And even so the four-way is a one-drop envelope,
Right.
right? Whereas the purity can be between one
It
and two.
can be 1 and 2.
Right?
Yep.
So
And-
you would expect to recover more with that mode,
And,
right?
and that's something we pointed out in the conclusions is that we actually have a little bit of information just because some of the study participants chose, instead of the four-way purity that we suggested, chose a different mode or different sort precision. And so in that case, can we leverage that as well? And does that help us? And what we want is to have something that is a simple test that you can do on the instrument, and then also if you need to make changes. And again, we want to have that conversation with companies as well to be able to have an open dialogue to say, okay, this is what we saw. Can we talk to you about this? And what can we help with? And also, so again, we want it to be a collaborative effort between users, sort operators, and the companies too.
Right.
And then taking a look and delving a little bit deeper. So one of those, year 3 is, let's look at the sort precisions.
And the efficiency.
Yeah.
Some of these people may have been sorting at 50% efficiency, and they're only going to get 50% recovery max, right?
Oh, that
So-
single cell, the one that did it at single cell, I bet their efficiency was terrible, but they were selecting for particles that were less likely to be in the edge of a drop, so it looks better, right?
Right.
So they're all related, and yes, getting people to follow the protocol
Right. It
is
has to
really
be-
important.
And the
It
protocol
will
is-
help tighten some of these.
But also thank you to the people who kind of didn't follow the directions, because it is a good illustration that if you have a customer in the core who has that perfect unlimited amount of sample, if they're willing to pay for the time and bring enough sample for you to do their sort on single cell mode, they're going to get back what you tell them you gave them.
Much closer, at least.
Okay, much closer.
Yeah, but our experience, especially with a square concept, our experience is definitely not, if we switch from a purity mode to four-way purity, we don't see the recovery going from, what is it, almost 100% to 45%. I mean, we don't see that happening, for sure.
Okay.
I mean, the recovery is still pretty, actually, most of the times we don't even see a difference when we switch. The efficiency is pretty much the same, and we don't see issues with loss of recovery when we switch to like the four-way purity.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I mean, and for the most part, we were asking people to sort these pretty slowly, meaning not at a high concentration. So I think we wanted a minimum of around 100 to 300 particles per second, so that we weren't dealing with too many that were going through but not too few at the same time. And so we're not trying to sort thousands or tens of thousands at the same time.
Right.
To help with that. But again, with
but that's going to
the,
depend on
yeah.
the number of drops per second, right?
Yeah.
So the efficiency there is related to both the number of events per second and the number of drops.
Right.
Right? So I guess it's better to standardize in terms of efficiency. All of these sorters have something saying the efficiency,
percent.
right?
Yep.
And maybe standardizing that, like between 98 and 100, something like that. But then you still have to trust that they're doing that, right?
Oh, and we did ask for sort reports. We didn't always get sort reports. We asked for sort reports, FCS files, and so I think we will go going forward, put an emphasis on we want your sort report, because that will give us some more details about that as well. So yeah, we did have some sort reports come through, but then some oopsies, we didn't quite get that information. So it's first round of looking at the data was specific to how many beads were recovered, and then also delve a little bit deeper. So we wanted to get a high level and then get more into the details as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I think the protocol has been really well designed to take into account human discrepancies, down to how fast you're running it. It is like a really strict step-by-step guide, I think, that anybody can really follow. So, but humans are humans, right?
Yeah. And we know that sort operator's time is limited too. So yeah.
I just wanted to ask in general for people here who were or were not in the study, if you have one of these instruments where you do have operator control over your drop delay value, not one of the totally buttoned up automated things, are you currently or have you considered using different size particles if you get that customer who does also happen to know the size of the cell that they just brought you, which is a whole other thing. But in our core, we have considered including in our appointment form what's the diameter approximately of the particles that you're trying to sort, and given some thought to whether we would drop delay accordingly. Like if we had a box in the fridge of these different size particles that we could use for AccuDrop, would we incorporate that, or is that another layer of complexity that we're adding, that we're putting the burden on the customer to say, now you got to pick which size, in addition to picking which nozzle, which size beads? Is that too much burden to put on them? Is it meeting them where they are? Should we throw up our hands and just say, well, this is how the ARIA is, and that's what happens? Or
Maybe it would make them
I know
look at
my
their thing
answer.
on a microscope for a change.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know my answer. I know.
Temperature of your space and your
Yeah.
environment. That's kind of what we do. If we've got a customer who's really invested in it, and really wants to make it perfect, they'll work with us, and we know how to have that conversation. If we've got a customer, it's a one-off, they just need some GFP cells to put back in the culture, guess what? We can sacrifice some of the cells recovery-wise. Here's your, 100,000 GFP cells that'll double tomorrow. Go. How much investment in time on both parties do we want to go into? That's the question. So, it's just realities of running a board.
And like many things in flow cytometry, and we hear this said all the time, I think can I quote Kathy Muirhead on this?
Yes.
It depends. It depends, right? Yeah, it depends. It depends. Yeah. But I like that you point out, that it really does depend on, do you need a precision and accuracy in that sort? Do you need a specific number versus are you going to throw it back into the culture?
Sort worksheet, you do the questionnaire well before the sort schedule. One of the things I say at the bottom of my summary is there's no such thing as a perfect sort. There are limitations to the entire process.
The unicorn brain.
Yeah.
Also, if you'd like to join the FCRG to help us with our study, we'd be more than welcome for that. They actually have a new website page, which is great, lists this drop delay study and the results, lists who we are and past studies, and there's a button to contact us to apply to join the FCRG. Don't shake your head like that, Catherine. Come on. There's no ribbon, but you make your own, like we
You can
make
find a
your
blank
own.
one, you can make a flow
They-
ribbon.
I did see that they had blank ones now.
They do. So yeah, please, if you'd like to
And
join,
not,
we would
not
love
just
to
taking
have you.
another one and make the, yeah, join us. And the contact, it goes to somebody.
It actually goes to
It
the
actually
live
goes
person.
to a live person now. So we apologize for anybody who's tried to join us and has gotten nowhere. But, yeah. No.
Yeah, so
We're very
if-
welcoming.
If anyone is interested, I'm the incoming chair. Feel free to talk to me. Feel free to look me up on the app. If you Google my name, you will probably get my work email. It's probably easier to find it in the ABRF app. So that concludes our session for today. The next up, it looks like there is a networking break. So I hope you all have a great rest of your meeting, and we'd love to chat with you more.
Thank you.